Flashpoint Fire Rescue is a cooperative board game in which players play the role of firefighters attempting to save some victims from a burning building. The objective is simple: rescue 7 victims from the building before 4 of them pass away or the building collapses. For more information about how to play, check the links in the description. Welcome back to Board Game Bananas, and this is my review. It's a balance that games have to get right. The balance between being simple and intuitive enough for first-time players so that they can understand and feel like they understand what's going on, but also having enough complexity so that more experienced players don't get bored. It's a very difficult balance between being so simple that people understand it and yet have enough depth so that there's a replayability about the game. That balance is one of the things I think that Flashpoint Fire Rescue gets absolutely spot on. When you're playing this in family mode especially, it's a relatively straightforward game. It's intuitive. You're firefighters, you're running into the building, you're fighting flames and trying to rescue victims, exactly as a firefighter does in real life. I think that premise is intuitive enough so that, to be honest, even children can understand it. And I think on top of that, what this game really does well is that when that bit starts to get repetitive, or when it starts to feel like you know what you're doing, so to speak, well, then there's an experience mode, and then there are different levels in the experience mode for you to play. So this game takes a very, very long time before it starts to feel repetitive or starts to feel boring. It absolutely gets that balance between being simple and being complex enough to be replayable absolutely spot on. Building on top of that, I absolutely love how closely this game sticks to its theme of being a firefighter running into a burning building and trying to save as many victims as you can while at the same time fighting flames. This game sticks to its theme very, very well in the design of it and also in the mechanics. You know, there's always a tension there because the building's on fire, and you're faced with choices that a real-life firefighter, so to speak, would face on a daily basis. You know, do you fight as many flames as you can in order to get to the victim in the shortest route possible, or do you perhaps take the longer way around and hope that the fire doesn't spread too much? These are the types of decisions that, you know, a real-life firefighter actually has to face, and this game encapsulates that very, very well. And also on top of that, a lot of the other mechanics of the game really fit the theme as well. You know, of course you move slower when you're carrying a victim with you, because, you know, you're carrying somebody, they're heavy, of course you move slower. And, you know, of course you move slower if you're going through fire, and of course it takes more time to extinguish fire than it does to extinguish some smoke. So, you know, that again is part of this game being relatively intuitive. Regular viewers of this channel will know, by the way, I really like a simple, intuitive game. But yeah, the closeness with which this game sticks to its own theme is really something that raises it to the next level, makes it more intuitive, but also does give you that real adrenaline that you would, I suppose, have as a real firefighter. Thankfully, not the danger though, because the fire is just on the board. On the negative side, one of the few things that I don't particularly like about this game is that, especially when you're playing on the family version, setup is exactly the same. You have fire in exactly the same places, you have the point of interest tokens in exactly the same places, and this generally leads to you doing the exact same thing for the first couple of moves, at least, before it becomes a little bit more random. I prefer it to have a little bit more randomness in the setup than that, so I don't instinctively know what I'm going to do with my first 2 or 3 moves, just based on having played it that many times. My recommendation for that would be to take a leaf out of the experienced version of this game's book by basically starting with a few explosions in a few key areas, and therefore you have a bit more randomness in where the fire is and a little bit more variability when you play. Having said that though, if the family version ever does feel a little bit stale, a little bit repetitive, then you've got the experienced version right there, and, you know, it's not a major criticism, just I'd like a little bit more replayability in the family version. And another criticism I have about this game is that I find the leap between the family version and the experienced version to be just a little bit too much, really. Not necessarily in terms of difficulty or in terms of complexity, but purely just in terms of things going on and rules that you suddenly have to remember. You know, in the experienced version, you're introducing the hazmat tokens, you're introducing the hotspots, you're introducing the roll cards, You know, you're introducing the ambulance and the fire engine, and then the cannon that comes on the fire engine. There's even a different way of replenishing the points of interest. I find that in terms of rules and in terms of complexity, it's a little bit of a leap from one to the other. And you know, if you've been enjoying the family game and the simplicity of that, you might look at the experienced version of the game and think, it's not quite as simple as what I was enjoying from the family version. That being said, I will say the experienced version is very, very good, and those things that I mentioned, they do all add something to the game. But I would question, you know, could some of them have perhaps been left out entirely? Could some of them even have been included in the family version of the game so that the experienced version isn't suddenly throwing 5 new different things at you? I don't know. Like I said, I do think all of them add something, but in terms of a leap, it's a little bit big, and I could understand if a few players are put off by that. In conclusion, I really, really love this game. I especially like how simple it is for beginning players, but it does add a level of complexity, and it does add more and more decisions for you to make so that it doesn't ever really get stale or become repetitive and boring. I have seen comments online though, people saying like, oh, they don't like how the fire pops up randomly and there's no way to really predict that. I would say, hey, newsflash, fire is unpredictable. I've also seen comments of people saying, oh, well, it feels very reactionary, you know, you can't plan things very far in advance, you're basically just looking at it from turn to turn and doing what's best in that moment. Again, fires are spontaneous, the building is on fire, you know, you have to be a little bit reactionary. If you were to strategically plan your moves in advance, you would probably strategically plan to have smoke alarms or sprinklers or to not have a fire at all. So I don't really buy that criticism of the game. All in all, I think it's an absolutely fantastic game for all of the family. It's simple and intuitive enough so that the, shall we say, less experienced board gamers in the family will understand it quite quickly. But also there's enough options and enough choices so that the people who are more, shall we say, more involved in board games still have things for them to think about and different tactics for them to, different ways of approaching the game, let's say. But also the premise is intuitive enough so that you could even play it with children, in my opinion. And hey, we've all dreamed about being that firefighter who bravely runs into a burning building and saves some people, right? So this game very much encapsulates that, and you can do it without actually risking getting hurt. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I would love to know what you think about this game. I would score this a perfect 5 out of 5 bananas. I think it's an excellent family game that literally everybody can enjoy. A lot of games get called great family games, but they're only really for the gamers of the family, or they're only really for the non-gamers of the family. This is a perfect balance for both the people who enjoy board games and the people who are a little bit newer. And it also works for kids. Perfect 5 out of 5 bananas. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'd love to know what you guys think. Please write me a comment down below. I'd very much like it if you subscribed as well or gave me a like or whatever. You know, this channel is very much just one man, one smartphone and some free editing software. So I get that warm, fuzzy feeling whenever I get a like or a comment or a subscriber. So yeah, just guilt tripping you into doing that, no problem. But yeah, if nothing else, I'll see you in the next one. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Take care, good luck, and hey, go and save some people. Goodbye. Side point, but when you're putting this game away, it looks like this. Just one big pile. Most of the tokens are pretty much the same size, and we're using about 1/3 of the box. Come on, game designers, you can do better than that.